Honest J. Nowak. Coming at you live. Alright. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Honest J. Nowak Graphix. And Graphix, of course, has an X at the end of it. That's only because I'm trying to be hip. But anyways, it's time to go ahead and talk about something else here. Something else related to gaming. Resident Evil 3 Remake. Because earlier today I've talked about Resident Evil 2 Remake. So it's only fair I go ahead and talk about the remake of the third game, which originally came out in 1999 under the name Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. But here, we don't really get that sort of subtitle. Resident Evil 3 is just what it's really called on the screen, but as I've said, the pseudonym Remake is typically used as a way of describing what the game itself is, in contrast to the original. So Remake is what we'd probably call the subtitle, in a way. But instead that's not necessarily shown. But there are some examples of remade games that do in fact have Remake as part of the title, like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I might have to talk about that sometime because I keep mentioning it, but anyways, let's go ahead and just talk about this one, shall we? Resident Evil 3 Remake stars the likes of Jill, Valentine, and Carlos. These games, of course, were known throughout the original for basically being the main protagonists. And then you have yourself the main antagonist, a Russian spy, somewhat stereotypical by any means, who does in fact seize control of a new type of viral strain, which is in fact capable of doing a whole lot more to what the original G virus, at least in this remade continuity, shows us. As I've said before, the original Resident Evil canon shows that there was a T virus put into place, but now it's called G virus. In later Resident Evil installments have called it the C virus, so that's opening up a can of complications as it already shows, but over the past 25 years, I suppose that maybe not all Resident Evil fans are going to take this franchise seriously because of how long-running it's already become. 8 main titles to go through, along with tons of other things out there. And not to mention movies, shows, internet videos of all sorts of things that have taken place. I mean, the series has been gigantic. So, I mean, I'm more than glad to be a part of the fan base that's surrounding this franchise. But when I got the chance to play Resident Evil 3 Remake when I bought it on discount last August, it's fair to say that it was a pretty quick, easy, breezy playthrough that I managed to do. And part of the reason for that is because it's pretty darn short. For a Resident Evil title, it seems to be hitting the mark at what most PlayStation 1 or 2 games would show us, at an average story length of only 6 hours at most. That's probably just one of a few flaws that I might find about this game, and one of the main reasons why I won't necessarily like this title as much as many other Resident Evil titles out there. For a brand new title out there that came out in early 2020, that's kind of pathetic. It's probably more or less the reason why Capcom has decided to stick to other things out there rather than try to remake some of their older counterparts all over again. I mean, who even knows if we're ever going to have a Resident Evil 4 remake, or Resident Evil 5 remake, or 6 remake, or 7 remake, or 8 remake, or otherwise. I guess only time will tell. As I've said before though, 6 hours is just way too darn short for a Resident Evil title. And also, it's important to note that Resident Evil coins the term survival horror. In this title, you don't get a whole lot of survival horror. I played it on the easiest difficulty possible, as I do with so many games out there, to get a nice, quick, easy playthrough, which almost makes it boring. In this case, it really does become boring, in a way. I feel like maybe I should have turned up the difficulty a bit more when I first played it, and it was the only time I played it before I sent the game back for a refund. So, let's just say here that the story and the character setup, the graphics, gameplay, again, they are much more improved here compared to the original game itself. So I'm not really going to be very nitpicky about this one just because of what it is in general. A PS4 game that came out in early 2020 while a pandemic was around. But on the basis of what's going on now, with a triple pandemic, extreme levels of conservatism running around the whole place, the politics are ruling every subject that people are doing nowadays, and you can never go very far without hearing something awful happen about this country or this world. You can never go away from that. Like, really? What happened to such a good civilization? I swear, the lockdowns had better start over again so we can recuperate from all this mess. But, you know what though? Resident Evil 3 Remake, while I will certainly discredit it for having such a very short length for a PS4 game, and while I will also disband it because of its, well, somewhat monotonous attitude, and also because of how easy it can be. I mean, it almost gets too easy. Survival horror or not, it's incredible that the Resident Evil series has caught on with such glowing eyes and incredible sensitivity. But yet we're basically looking at something that almost seems bland in a way. I'm not really going to go and say that this is a bad title by any means. It's not even close to bad. It's got everything you possibly need. It's got easy gameplay. It's got controls that are simple to learn. It's got a nice story, a nice way to revamp the original canon that had been set upon in the original series. It's got a decent cast and all that, with voice actors going all over the place. Some nice sound design and, well, look and feel of it that really does give us a PS4-esque feel every time we play it. But yet, as I've said, there are flaws to this game. This game is very darn flawed from the way I see it. It probably could have been done a little bit better. The puzzles probably could have been a bit more trickier to solve. They probably could have had a bit more intuition with those parts. You don't necessarily get a lot of survival horror, especially with constant ammo that you pick up, making it much easier for you to decimate all enemies in your way. And you know what though? I really do have to mention the main antagonist in the game, Nemesis. The almighty towering behemoth known as the Nemesis. Another huge BOW that is out to kill you. Much like what Mr. X / Tyrant had done. Much like with the original zombies and lickers and many other creatures that had come around throughout all the other games. But Resident Evil 3 Remake, at least in this particular situation, while it does have an impressive way of bringing back the original Nemesis character from the original Resident Evil 3, I still don't necessarily see how that's supposed to improve all odds. It does do some ways to improve and help out a bit, giving the Nemesis a lot more control to be able to come to you at any point and be able to force you to start fighting back. I tell you, this is the kind of challenge that we should expect to see a little bit more often. But yet, I feel like that it doesn't solve all the problems that we have at hand. Just some, but not all. Meanwhile, of course, there's the ending to the game, where Nemesis finally gets destroyed, and the Russian spy is also defeated. So, well, you know what? It's still, I'd say it's probably not a bad title. Not bad by any means. A lot of people might call it a bad game in general, but still, for Resident Evil, I'm not really going to tear it apart to asunder by all necessary ways to do so. So, well, you know what though? I suppose that probably just cuts it, but anyways, there's one other game I will be talking about later today, and it'll be another ways of horror, gore, blood, and violence. So, be sure to stick around for that. So, if you want to see more go down on my channel, then make sure that you'll like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.